Welcome back to the SportsMax Zone. We turn our attention now to football. Earlier today at the Aviva Stadium in Dublin, Ireland, Serie A club Atalanta and recently crowned Bundesliga champions Bayer Leverkusen contested the 2023-24 Europa League final. Atalanta were seeking their first major silverware since 1963, while Bayer Leverkusen, unbeaten in all competitions this season, were seeking to keep their dream alive of an invincible treble. Well, let's see how that final unfolded.
Clear. Back into the danger zone by Zappa-Costa. Touch for Kolasinac. Court Miners. Zappa-Costa! Lookman! Atalanta strike first on the big night! Ademola Lookman, sharp and on the spot!
It's a goal, Peter. You have to say Atalanta really do deserve. I've been talking about the positive start they've made to the game. They stepped onto Leverkusen. It looked like the danger had been cleared, but this pass from Coop Miners is outstanding. And then De Ketelare, when he pulls the ball back, I'm looking at Palacios, who just switches off. You know, as Lookman steps in, tucks the ball home, Palacios is just caught on his heels at the far post. It's a brilliantly constructed goal. Looked like the set piece had come to nothing. They keep the ball alive. Two excellent passes. And the ball is in the back of the Leverkusen net.
It is a season for Gasperini and indeed for Ademola Lookman.
Again from Atalanta, every outfield player in the Leverkusen half. And once again, get the ball back.
Odd header from Adley. Lookman's onto it. Ademola Lookman! Oh, that's a gem of a goal! What a sweet finish! Pounced on his moment and nailed it into the bottom corner. And Atalanta are in a sweet spot here.
It's an extraordinary start to the game. A start probably no one, even Atalanta fans, would have predicted this, but the pressure on the ball has forced Leverkusen into mistakes. So mistakes are one thing, taking advantage of them, exploiting them is another matter. And Ademola Lookman, again, the positivity, the belief, the confidence. And again, he does absolutely the right thing with the finish. It's a whip pass into the bottom corner. It's not hit and hope. You see, he wraps his instep around it. He's in charge of how he finishes this. It hits the side netting. It's that accurate. It's a stunning strike, and Leverkusen look completely shell-shocked.
Ademola Lookman. Tar. Adley. Xhaka. Adley. Pasalic with a crisp tackle. Skamaka's on his way. Lookman's up alongside him. Skamaka. Ademola Lookman. Lookman! Glorious hat-trick! The night of his life! The night of his dreams! He makes history! Atalanta write their own history! Surely now they are nearly there!
It's a truly devastating finish. You've got to credit Skamaka, because as soon as he picks the ball up, he's scanning and looking. There's defenders all around him, but he knows, I can't score. I can be selfish, maybe take the shot on. He doesn't. He picks out the pass that isolates Ademola Lookman. And you've got a major problem. Tapsoba's on a booking, so he can't risk stepping out to him. So he backs off, and you give Lookman this amount of space, and he's going to punish you and absolutely buries it. No more than he deserves, no more than Atalanta deserve. He has been just unplayable tonight. The game plan from Atalanta, Gasperini, has worked perfectly. And the finishing from Ademola Lookman just off the charts.
Not just a hat-trick, a truly picturesque hat-trick. And indeed, the first hat-trick ever to be scored in a one-off final, either of the UEFA Cup or the Europa League. The only previous hat-trick...
His performance from Atalanta is, and the win, they absolutely deserve it. We're up against a team which no one has been able to lay a glove on, and they have been sensational.
And the party has begun. Nothing's going to stop them now. Schick for Leverkusen. Through by Lojek. Boniface. Lojek. Cracked away by Edison. Now Lookman has half the field to run into. And Torre through the middle. Toloi. Seconds away. It is Atalanta for the very first time. Gasparini's thrill-a-minute boys from Bergamo are bringing it home. And Ademola Lookman is the hero of the night. Hat-trick hero. Historic hat-trick hero.
What a storyline, of course. What a win there for Atalanta, 3-0 over Bundesliga champions Bayer Leverkusen. Well, joining us this afternoon on set to review the final, our very own prediction guru and football analyst, Leger Williams. Leg, I didn't see this one coming, I have to admit, and I didn't see it happening in this manner.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I didn't see this happening either. I did think that it would be a much closer game than many people would have thought coming into it, but Atalanta really came to the fore. I expected to see the sort of game that we saw against Juventus in the Coppa Italia final over the weekend, but it was anything but that, and they're very deserved winners in the end, and it was a really good performance by them and a really good game plan by them as well. Speaking
about good performance, Ademola Lookman, man of the match, hat-trick, everything going well for him in today's match.
Yeah, and that, you know, I'm a statsman, just a fun piece of information, as it was said in the commentary as well. That's the first hat-trick in a Europa League or UEFA Cup final, a one-off Europa League or UEFA Cup final in its history. The first hat-trick in a major European final since 1969 when Prati did it for AC Milan. So it's a type of thing that doesn't happen often. We've only seen what would be now 3 players do it in Puskás, Di Stefano, Prati, and now Lookman. He's in some really good company, so it's not something we see often for good reason. It's because performances like this on this type of stage is not easy, and he definitely pulled it out on all 3 of the goals, especially the last 2 were scrumptious, really.
Yeah,
so
it
was some brilliant goals. So yeah, he definitely deserved it. Atalanta deserved it, and it was a really good performance by him.
Yeah, you spoke about this type of stage. One of the biggest stage, Bayer Leverkusen was supposed to have a fairy tale ending, according to all the pundits leading up to this match. Bayer Leverkusen could have done no wrong. Everybody was talking about Xabi Alonso and what he would have done with his side, how he would have, of course, motivated them and inspired them to that Bundesliga title. Bayer Leverkusen, of course, did not live up to all of the hype. Where did they go wrong today?
Well, I think this answer might be a little bit long-winded, but I do think that there are a couple of areas I have to consider first. Firstly, you know, this is something that when you speak about on a cultural level what managers are, in terms of Xabi Alonso, he's a Spanish coach. He's played on a lot of pragmatic coaches. When you speak about Benitez, for example, Jose Mourinho, he's a pragmatist at heart. So yes, Leverkusen have been playing some really good football throughout the season, and they've done that by exploiting the wide areas. But today, as you saw it from in the semi-final initially against Roma, a little bit of fear snuck in, and he tried to really dominate the center of the pitch. And because Spanish managers or managers that like possession are obsessed with control. We saw that with Xabi Alonso in the semi-final, as I said, with Roma, by playing Wirtz in that false 9 position, playing a lot of players in close proximity to each other, not really having that wide outlet apart from one, which would be the left-sided wing-back. In that Roma game, it was Adli. In this game, it was more so Grimaldo, who was their widest player. But we don't have it here, but if you were to look at the average positions for all of the Leverkusen's players, I don't think any of the players, apart from Grimaldo, was outside of the width of the penalty area. So it was a very narrow performance or a narrow setup by Xabi Alonso and Leverkusen. And I think that was their undoing. They needed to stretch Atalanta a bit more, especially someone like Frimpong. Playing him in a central area is wasting him in a bit. So I think that was the first mistake that Xabi Alonso made. And I think any mistake after that would have more so been something good that Atalanta did, because Atalanta did a really good job of just being extremely aggressive from the jump. If you were to see back the second goal, for example, the first goal was a mistake from a set piece, Palacios falling asleep at the back post, but the second goal really exemplifies everything that went right for Atalanta in this game and wrong for Leverkusen in this game. So Leverkusen are building up from the goal kick. They play it long. Atalanta have 5 players pressing Leverkusen. There are 3 attackers and there are 2 holding midfielders. Leverkusen tried to play it long to an attacker that can't hold up the ball well enough. If they had started Boniface, maybe you would have been able to trap the ball well and then bring in his teammates, but you're playing the ball further forward to Adley, who isn't that type of player. And then once they give up the ball, they're going to be in a disadvantageous position because they're in a build-up scenario where their players aren't as close as they need to be.
And you're exposed.
You're exposed immediately. So here, Adley is not going to win back the ball, and then the ball comes straight to Lookman. Yes, Leverkusen have the players to deal with it, but once you're on your back foot, backpedaling against players like Lookman with the movement that Atalanta brings as well, it's always going to be disadvantageous for you. And Atalanta really took advantage of a lot of those scenarios throughout the game. We saw that in the third goal as well. And I think, yes, football is decided by tactics, but at the end of the day, the first thing, I'm an Arsenal fan, so I can say this, what you hear Arsene Wenger or even now Mikel Arteta, Pep Guardiola says this as well, the first thing you have to go out there and do, win your duels. You have to go out there and win your duels. They say it in a much more colorful manner, but I can't on TV. So the first thing you have to do is win your duels. And Atalanta were the more aggressive team, and what they did was really exceptional in all phases of the game, and they were more than deserved winners in this one.
Yeah, because you raised a very valid point about Xavi trying to compress the field, but it worked in Atalanta's favor because in midfield they were a lot more aggressive, a lot more physical, and Bayern likes to have room to play the ball and those small triangles that they play and then spread it out wide and push it down the flanks. But they didn't have an opportunity to do that today at all. Why is it that they were unable to adjust given what we saw Atalanta do to them in midfield, given that they had tried to compress the field?
I think it's, as I said, it's a bit of pragmatism from the manager. We see this from Spanish coaches all the time. So at the highest level, Spanish coaches are always criticized, if you notice, for being the battling coaches. Yeah. So when you think about Pep Guardiola and his Champions League finals or Champions League failures after leaving Barcelona, a lot of people said that it was because that he was in his indecisiveness or just overthinking of certain scenarios. It's right in some scenarios, not right in some, because at the end of the day, it's their overthinking that leads them to be that good in the first place.
And to be fair, just to interrupt for a second there, the thing is, though, that you saw that rate wasn't working for the entire half, which is something that Bayern has never experienced all season long in 51 unbeaten matches. You would have thought that Xavi, given the experience that he's had, would have probably tweaked that a little bit, maybe tried to, well, he's not a fan of the long ball, we all know this. So, as I mentioned, the pragmatic side of things. But why is it that he not even a little tweak to say, okay, let's try something different? I mean, the pragmatism is one, but it's a final, so you have to try to win. But he was unable to.
Yeah, but I still think that he was trying to get his team to control certain areas of the pitch. And as the half wore on, you saw that Atalanta's press maybe moved back into a mid-block as opposed to staying into that high block. So I'm not going to say it was working for Leverkusen, but it's very important as a coach, especially if you're a coach who sticks by certain principles in every game, to even if you're not getting it right now, if you allow your team to stick to those principles and it ends up coming good, that's how your team ends up becoming a more established unit playing that system. You saw that this season, for example, in the English Premier League when Ange Postecoglou was getting, flogged a couple of times in a couple of games. He still stuck to his high line, still tried to play out at all times. So it's a similar thing. I do think that he should have made adjustments, but I think that adjustment should have come from the very starting Boniface or Schick or even Hosek to have that target man up front and playing Frimpong a bit wider. that could have been my adjustment, and I do think that that's something that he will learn upon. We have to remember that Xabi Alonso is still a very young manager,
coach,
and he will still learn. But I think all credit, even though I'm saying all of this in spite of Xabi Alonso, all credit has to go to Gasperini, because how many coaches go to a European final, their first European final, and say, okay, we're here, we're going to try and not lose it. They're not going to commit 5 players to high press one of the best ball playing teams in Europe to try and get that result. That's exactly how brave Atalanta were, and that's how excellent they were as well. So I think everything that I'm saying, yes, Leverkusen made mistakes, but everything, all the credit has to go to Atalanta in this game.
Listen, when you're going to Anfield and dominate and beat up Liverpool 3-0, you can't deserve to win anything.
Well, of course, they're calling it, Lish, the Lookman final. Congratulations to Atalanta for, of course, such a dominant display earlier today. We want to thank you, of course, Lish, for your input, and we'll talk again soon. You don't get to predict anything today.
Yeah, but I'll predict something down the line. We have the Champions League final coming up. We have the FA Cup final coming up on Saturday. I'll give you a free prediction for that one.
Manchester City.
Man City will win.
Thank you. I always knew he liked me. Thanks for that, Lish. All right, on that good note, we're taking a quick break. We'll be right back.